The moment the hero placed the black flash drive on the boardroom table, a piercing headache spiked behind my eyes. The invisible script controlling our world gave me a single command: step forward and lie to ruin her life. That was June, the perfect, flawless hero of this story. And sitting across from him was Mina Kong, the Ice Queen of Murray Group, the designated villainess who was about to lose everything. And me, my name is Jean. I was just a disposable background character standing against the wall holding a useless folder in a navy blazer that suddenly felt too tight. My only purpose in this plot was to act as cannon fodder and confirm June's fake evidence. But as Mina reached for her microphone, her fingers accidentally brushed against my wrist, skin touched skin, and the entire world instantly froze. Chairman Kang's cane hovered half an inch above the floor. A director's mouth remained open mid-whisper. The cold silver skyline of the city beyond the glass windows turned sharp and colorless. Every building suspended beneath a sky without movement. Then came the ringing. A high thin sound pierced my skull as my script's echo activated. Usually my ability to see the future came in broken, useless fragments. A spilled cup before it tipped. A manager's betrayal before the email was sent. But this time, the chaos snapped into place. The vision opened cleanly like a perfectly typed document. I saw June insert the flash drive. I saw the false ledger appear on the screen bearing the stolen digital signature of Tihan, Mina's assistant. I saw Chairman Kong order security. I saw Mina standing alone while the board recoiled from her as if corruption were contagious. Then the vision sharpened further, not through me, through Mina. I felt her cutting through the script's fog like a blade through silk. The false ledger became more than an image. It became information. Timestamp inconsistency. Signature theft. Preloaded display file. Presentation trigger. June's right hand. For the first time in my life, the future was clear, readable, executable. And the most terrifying part, the villainess was looking right at the vision with me. Her mismatched violet and emerald eyes widened by the smallest fraction. Then the vision shattered. Sound crashed back into the room. Time slammed back into motion. Chairman Kang's cane struck the floor. June was still reaching for the flash drive. I staggered half a step, my heart hammering so violently I thought everyone would hear it. Did she see that? Mina's fingers left my wrist. For a single breath she did not move. Then her expression changed, not into fear, not confusion, a smirk, small, cold, beautifully cruel. June picked up the flash drive. His expression carrying just enough pain to appear reluctant, just enough courage to appear noble. "If the board will allow me," he said, his voice low and wounded, "I will now display the financial records." "Before you plug that in," Mina said, her voice was calm enough to lower the temperature of the room. June paused, every eye turned toward her. Mina leaned back in her chair, folding one leg elegantly over the other. "You should know that my assistant reported his digital signature stolen 3 hours ago." Silence changed shape. June's smile remained, but his fingers tight around the flash drive. Mina continued, "If T's name appears anywhere on that ledger, then you have not brought proof of my corruption to this board. You have brought fabricated evidence into a shareholder meeting." For the first time since I had entered the room, June looked genuinely still, not gentle, not wounded, still. The board erupted. What signature theft? 3 hours ago? Why were we not informed? T, who had been standing near the rear wall with a tablet in hand, adjusted his circular glasses. Without any visible emotion, he tapped the screen once. A notification appeared on the boardroom display. Official internal security report filed 3 hours earlier. Digital signature compromised, access suspended, investigation pending. The timing was perfect, too perfect. I stared at Mina. She had not guessed, she had not defended herself blindly. She did not need faith in some random employee's warning because she had seen the future with me. The forged file, the stolen signature, the timing of June's hand, she had watched all of it become proof before it even happened. Chairman Kang's face darkened. "Mina," he said slowly, "explain why this was not disclosed to the board." Mina did not even look at him. "Because, Chairman, I was waiting to see who attempted to use the stolen signature first." The room went cold. June lowered the flash drive. His hero mask trembled at the edges, but his expression recovered quickly. A soft, wounded laugh escaped him. "This is a misunderstanding. I received the files from a whistleblower. I had no way of knowing, then plug it in." Mina's words cut him off. June blinked. She tilted her head slightly. "If you are innocent, present the evidence." Let the board see whether T's stolen signature appears on your ledger. No one spoke. The flash drive sat between June's fingers like a loaded gun pointed backward. My mind raced. Oh, that is horrifying. She did not just dodge the bullet. She handed it back and asked him to fire. A few directors began whispering again, but this time the tone had changed. Suspicion no longer flowed only toward Mina. It had found June. Chairman Kang's jaw tightened. He wanted to strike the table. I could see it. He wanted to force the scene back onto its intended path, but he could not without making himself look like an accomplice. The invisible script had pushed the room toward Mina's destruction, but Mina had just taken a knife and cut the thread. June slowly set the flash drive back onto the table. I believe, he said carefully, that we should verify the source before proceeding further. Mina smiled. It was the kind of smile a queen gave an executioner who had dropped his own axe. How responsible of you. I nearly choked. This woman is terrifying. My wrist still tingled where her fingers had touched me. Mina finally turned her head, not toward June, not toward Chairman Kang, toward me. The boardroom chaos faded around me. Her mismatched eyes locked onto mine, cold and calculating, but beneath the ice was something sharper. Recognition. She did not know what I was. She did not know how our abilities had locked together, but she knew the impossible had happened through me, and she knew she had not imagined it. I stood frozen beside the table, suddenly aware that every instinct telling me to stay invisible had failed. I had spent years surviving by being forgettable. One accidental touch had destroyed that safety forever. Across the ruined boardroom, Mina Kong watched me like a woman discovering a weapon no one else knew existed. And I understood with a cold sinking certainty that my role in the story had just changed. I was no longer disposable evidence. I was now the anomaly, and the villainess had found me. I spent the entire next day pretending my life was still normal. It was not. Normal people didn't accidentally share future visions with villainous CEOs during hostile board meetings. I sat at my desk on the 23rd floor of Kong Murray Group's headquarters, keeping my head down. The rumors were moving faster than official emails. Mina had survived the emergency vote. June's evidence had been questioned, and I, an ordinary employee who should have been invisible, had somehow been standing right in the middle of it. I just wanted to disappear. The invisible script controlling our world would correct itself. June would remain the hero, Mina would remain the villainess, and I could go back to being a nobody. That was my cowardly, practical plan. Practical plans kept people alive, but by nightfall, the script proved it wasn't done with me. I had barely locked my apartment door when my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. Mr. Jean, please come downstairs. The car is waiting. I looked out my window. Parked in the narrow street below was a sleek, expensive black car. Then, my phone buzzed again with a message. Director Mina Khan requests your attendance tonight. Attached was an invitation to the Han River Foundation Gala, the most exclusive high society charity event of the year. 30 minutes later, I was standing in front of my mirror wearing a tailored black suit that had been handed to me by a silent driver. The suit was too expensive. I looked almost important. That was dangerous. Remember, I told my reflection, you are not attending a gala. You're entering a battlefield with champagne. When I walked into the Grand Hotel ballroom, the chandeliers were spilling warm light over billionaires and politicians making quiet deals. I grabbed a glass of champagne just to give my hand something to do. Across the room, I spotted June. In this world, importance has a weight. It gathers around certain people like invisible gravity. Doors open before they knock. Strangers trust their tears. June had that gravity. He was dressed in a soft cream suit looking gentle, sincere, and completely undeserving of suspicion. The perfect hero. Then, the room changed. The conversations softened. A quiet, cold pressure descended over the ballroom. Mina appeared at the top of the grand staircase. She wore a royal purple gown designed for war disguised as beauty. Her dark purple bob swept to one side framing her pale face. One violet eye, one emerald eye. Every powerful man in the room looked at her, some with desire, some with fear, but she ignored all of them. She walked straight across the ballroom, straight toward me. My survival instincts began screaming. Do not stare at the terrifying corporate villainess. That is how side characters die. Mina stopped right in front of me. Up close, her gaze was even sharper. Dance with me, she commanded. Before I could object or panic, she took my champagne, placed it on a passing tray, and pulled me onto the dance floor. The music shifted into a waltz. Of course, it did. The script always had a flair for dramatic timing. "Director Kong," I whispered, trying not to step on her dress, "why am I here?" "Because yesterday when you touched me, I saw the future," she replied smoothly. I swallowed hard. "I don't know what happened." "Yes, you do." Her grip on my hand tightened, not painfully, but enough to remind me I wasn't there for entertainment. "Explain." I couldn't lie to her. I explained the script, how the world arranged timing and coincidences to protect June and frame her. I told her I was just a background character who got broken, useless flashes of the future. Mina absorbed this without flinching. "And why did the vision become clear when I touched you?" "I don't know," I admitted. "When I touch other people, the visions are blocked or painful, but with you, it becomes clear." "Clarity," Mina said. "That is the closest name I have for it. June's influence never reaches me properly. When he smiles, others soften. When he lies, others hesitate. I do not." I stared at her. She didn't need to believe me blindly. She had stood inside the same vision with me, seen the same future bend itself around June, and watched the same false evidence become readable proof. That was worse than trust. That was shared evidence. Suddenly, Mina shifted her hand against my shoulder. Skin pressed firmly against skin. The ballroom stretched. The sound dropped. The ringing pierced my skull, but because Mina was holding me, the vision opened cleanly like a live surveillance feed. Through the vision, I saw June standing near the edge of the dance floor, speaking to a young woman with long pink hair. Yumiya Tech. Heiress whose family controlled the largest private server network in the country. In the vision, a waiter passed behind June carrying a tray of red wine. June shifted his foot back. His elbow brushed the waiter's arm. The tray tilted. Wine spilled all over Yumi's dress. June immediately stepped forward, offering his jacket with perfect concern. A heroic accident, a charming rescue. Then the vision sharpened. I saw June guiding Yumi away, asking about her family's network security. I saw server maps, credentials, access requests. The vision ended. We were still waltzing. "That was not romance," Mina said coldly. "He's targeting her family network. Sympathy is the key." I looked across the real ballroom. The real June was moving exactly like the vision. He was smiling at Yumi and a waiter with red wine was approaching from behind. My pulse spiked. "That's happening now." "Yes," Mina said. The faintest curve touched her lips, not warmth, but anticipation. "Keep dancing," she ordered. Toward him. I panicked. Obviously. Mina's fingers tightened around my hand, and together, still locked in the rhythm of the waltz, we moved directly into the path of the script. June's hand moved exactly the vision had shown. A tiny shift. The kind of casual movement no one in the ballroom would notice because everyone was too busy being rich, beautiful, and convinced that evil announced itself with thunder. I felt the script moving with him. That invisible pressure was trying to make the scene happen properly. The waiter would stumble, the wine would spill, Yumi would gasp, and June would step forward offering his jacket like a knight in a cream-colored suit. Then everyone would smile, and June would find his first doorway into Yumi's family network. Not today. Mina's eyes flicked once toward me. No explanation, no warning, just command. My body reacted before my brain finished panicking. I stepped into the turn, lifted Mina's hand, and spun her outward as part of the waltz. For half a second, she looked weightless. Royal purple fabric swept through the light like a blade wrapped in silk. Mina did not stumble. She extended one arm with perfect grace as if the entire ballroom had been built for this single motion. Her wrist brushed the waiter's tray. Not hard, just enough. The silver tray tipped, the glasses slid. June's elbow, already moving backward to cause the accident, finished the work for her. Red wine launched into the air. For one beautiful, merciless instant, the liquid hung above him like judgment. Then it crashed down onto June's pristine white suit. Every glass emptied across his chest, shoulders, and sleeves. The ballroom went silent. The kind of silence that only happened when powerful people witnessed something humiliating and needed half a second to decide whether laughing would damage their investments. June stood frozen. Red wine dripped from his hair and ran down his suit in violent streaks. He looked less like a gentle hero and more like a man who had lost a duel against a vineyard. Yumi stood only a few steps away. Completely untouched and dry, trying to understand how a disaster meant for her had somehow changed targets midair.
June opened his mouth. No words came out.
First time since I had met him, the false hero had no line prepared. My brain, despite the danger, offered one clear thought. That was the most elegant assassination I have ever seen, and no one even died.
Mina turned slowly, one hand still resting in mine.
Her expression changed into fake sympathy, the dangerous kind.
"Oh," she said softly, "how unfortunate." June's eyes lifted to hers. For a fraction of a second, the gentle mask slipped. There it was, cold anger, humiliation, disbelief.
Then it vanished beneath a strained smile.
"It's all right," June said, his voice tight. "Accidents happen." Mina tilted her head. "They do. You should really watch your step, June."
A few guests coughed into their hands.
Someone failed to hide a smile.
June lifted one hand with heroic restraint to wave off the apologizing waiter. Even soaked in wine, he tried to save the image.
That almost impressed me. Almost.
But for tonight, the scene was broken. "Come," Mina said to me, turning away from him as if he had already stopped mattering. She led me toward a quiet side corridor lined with tall windows overlooking the river.
Mina stopped near the glass.
For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Mina said, "You moved before I gave you the full plan." "I saw the waiter in the vision," I said, still catching my breath.
"And you saw it, too. You didn't have to trust me." Both watching the same trap. Mina's gaze stayed on the ballroom where June was trying to laugh off his ruined suit.
"Correct. The contact made your echo readable, and my clarity stripped away the performance around it."
"That sounds almost scientific when you say it."
"It is not," she said.
"It is survival."
For a moment, the corridor went quiet. The chandeliers glittered behind us. The river moved darkly beyond the windows, and I finally understood why Mina never softened when June smiled. She was not cold because she was cruel. She was cold because she had spent her entire life watching the world excuse him and condemn her for breathing.
But the danger wasn't over. I looked back through the open doorway.
Across the ballroom, June stood in a fresh dark jacket.
He was smiling at an elderly director.
Then his gaze shifted across the ballroom, past the guests, past Mina, directly to me.
His smile remained warm, but his eyes were absolute ice. I felt the static crawl faintly behind my ears, a warning. June had seen the pattern. Boardroom, I was near Mina, the trap failed. Gala, I was near Mina, the trap failed.
The false hero no longer looked at me like a disposable background extra. He looked at me like a mistake the story needed to erase.
Mina followed my gaze.
For a moment, the three of us were connected across the glittering ballroom, the villainess, the disposable man, and the hero covered in invisible stains.
Mina spoke calm and low. "From now on, you stay close to me."
I stared at June's smile and felt my old life disappear completely. "That sounds less like protection," I muttered, "and more like being recruited into a war."
Mina's eyes stayed on June. "It is both."
The next morning, I made one very serious mistake.
I went to work.
In my defense, staying home or running away would have been the fastest way to make myself look guilty of crimes I hadn't committed yet. So, I put on my navy blazer, adjusted my glasses, and went back to Kong Murray Group. As I stepped out of the elevator onto the 23rd floor, I immediately knew something was wrong. It wasn't a vision, just a suffocating pressure. The office floor had gone completely silent. People looked away when I passed. At the end of the aisle, my manager stood beside three men in dark internal security uniforms. They were waiting directly in front of my desk.
"Ah, there it is," I thought.
The part where the universe punishes me for improvising.
My monitor was awake, displaying encrypted file directories and access reports.
Research data from Mina's proprietary RD archive had been sent to a rival firm's receiving server. My employee login, my access key, my workstation. June had framed me.
He didn't use a dramatic public accusation.
This was cleaner, crueler. He was isolating the anomaly, separating me from Mina so he could bury me under evidence so perfect that any defense would sound like panic.
"Mr. Jean, you are required to accompany us for questioning regarding unauthorized data transfer," the lead security officer said. For one insane second, I almost told them that the fake hero of the world was protected by an invisible script and had identified me as a threat. Thankfully, my survival instinct grabbed that sentence by the throat and killed it. "I want to see the warrant," I said instead. "This is an internal corporate investigation."
"Legal is already waiting," the officer replied flatly.
They escorted me to the corporate security floor. The interrogation room was a sterile white box with a metal table and a single camera in the corner. It looked less like an office and more like a place where reputations went to be cremated. A legal advisor placed a tablet in front of me showing timestamped access records. My badge entering a restricted server note at 1:42 a.m. and a draft email negotiating the sale of confidential material. The evidence was flawless. That was exactly how I knew it was fake. Real human crime is messy, but this was a story designed to make disbelief feel unreasonable. The door opened. Chairman Kong entered first, his mahogany cane striking the floor. Behind him came June, his green eyes filled with concern. I hated that expression more than any open threat. I should have expected this, Chairman Kong said coldly. A low-level employee suddenly close to Mina, and now proprietary research appears in the hands of a rival. I did not transfer those files. I kept my voice even. Your credentials were used, the chairman snapped. June stepped forward lifting a hand as if to calm the room. Chairman, please, Jean may have been pressured. There it was, the trap inside Mercy. June turned to me with painful sincerity. Jean, if someone ordered you to do this, you can still protect yourself. Confess now, cooperate. I can speak on your behalf. Every word was a soft rope. If I denied it, I looked stubborn. If I confessed, I confirmed the lie. If I blamed Mina, June won. If I said nothing, Chairman Kong would hand me to the police. The script pressed against my skull. Confess, save yourself. Call the police in, Chairman Kong ordered. My pulse spiked. Through the glass panel, I saw uniformed officers waiting. This was it. The frame job was becoming official. I'm sorry, Jean, June murmured softly. No, you're not, I thought. Then the door opened, but the police did not enter. Mina did. The entire room went silent. She walked in without a raised voice or a dramatic announcement. Just Mina Kong carrying enough authority to make armed men hesitate in a hallway. Mina, this does not concern you, Chairman Kong scowled. Mina looked at him as if he had said something mildly incorrect in a meeting she had no patience for. Everything involving my department's R&D archive concerns me. Mina, I know this is difficult, but the evidence. June started. Show me, Mina cut him off. The legal advisor immediately handed her the tablet. I watched her read. 1 second, 2, 3. Her expression did not change. She wasn't seeing what the room wanted her to see. Her clarity was cutting through the evidence the same way it had cut through June's fake ledger. Too clean, too perfect, too eager to condemn. She placed the tablet back on the table. This man is my personal intelligence asset. My internal monologue briefly left its body. I'm sorry, what? Is that a thing? Can she make that a thing? She sounds like she can make that a thing. You're what? Chairman Kong stared at her. My personal intelligence asset, Mina repeated coldly. His actions regarding internal data access fall under executive privilege. June stepped in smoothly. Mina, no one wants to hurt him, but if Jean is innocent, an investigation will clear his name. No, Mina said. If he is innocent, your investigation will bury him before truth becomes useful. This is obstruction, Chairman Kong roared, striking his cane. Mina finally looked at him fully and the temperature in the room plummeted. No, uncle, this is jurisdiction. She took one step closer. If you attempt to transfer Jean to police custody before my internal forensic team reviews the evidence, I will freeze every subsidiary under your direct management, she said, her voice terrifyingly calm. I will begin with Kong Logistics, then Kong Biomaterials, then your private offshore holding firm, the one you mistakenly believe is hidden because you placed it under your third driver's brother-in-law. The silence became absolute. I forgot to breathe. Chairman Kang's face darkened with fury, but he didn't speak. Mina had won, not because the evidence was disproven, but because she had made the cost of touching me higher than the benefit. The car is waiting, Mina said, turning away. She looked at me stand up. My legs obeyed faster than my dignity. As I passed June, the false hero leaned slightly closer, just enough for me to hear. This will not save you. His smile stayed gentle for everyone else, but his whisper was pure ice. People don't want Mina's truth, Jean. They want someone warm enough to believe in. That has always been me. I didn't look at him, but Mina heard. She stopped at the door, and without turning fully, she said, "No, I will." My brain shut down for half a second before I followed her out. The security officers didn't stop us. The police remained in the hallway useless. In the private elevator, I finally let out the breath I had been holding. Personal intelligence asset? I asked. It worked, she replied. That is not an explanation. It is the only explanation that matters. The elevator opened into the private underground garage. The moment we were inside her black car, the doors locked with a soft click. Are we going back to the office? I asked. No, my apartment. No, if June can frame you once, he can do it again. Mina said, finally meeting my eyes. Your apartment is compromised. Your desk is compromised. Your identity inside the company is compromised. My mouth went dry. Then where am I supposed to go? Somewhere the script cannot easily reach you. The city lights slid across the car window like cold stars. My normal life was completely gone. June had turned the world against me in a single morning. And Mina Kong had claimed me as hers in front of the people trying to destroy me. I wasn't hiding from the script alone anymore, but that also meant the script was no longer hunting me by accident. It was hunting me by name. The car did not stop at a hotel, and it certainly did not stop anywhere near Kong Murray Group headquarters. We drove in silence until we reached an unmarked brutalist high-rise on the edge of the financial district. We took a private elevator that required Mina's fingerprint and a retinal scan just to press the button. When the doors opened, we stepped directly into a penthouse that looked like a billionaire's panic room. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a sprawling view of the Han River, but the glass was thick enough to stop a bullet. There were no smart home hubs, no digital assistants, and no Wi-Fi routers. Welcome to the only property in the city that does not exist on corporate ledgers, Mina said, dropping her keys onto a sleek marble counter. The script cannot arrange a coincidence here. There are no cameras to malfunction and no employees for June to manipulate. I stood awkwardly in the entryway. My navy blazer felt heavy, and the adrenaline that had kept me alive in the interrogation room was rapidly leaving my body, replaced by profound exhaustion. Make yourself comfortable. We will be here for a while, Mina said. She slipped off her heels, and for the first time since I had met her, the terrifying Ice Queen of Murray Group looked human. Her shoulders slumped by a fraction of an inch. The relentless crushing weight of fighting a universe that wanted her dead was finally showing. For the first time, I wondered how many traps she had survived before I ever touched her wrist in that boardroom. She walked into the open kitchen and filled an electric kettle. Do you drink tea? Sure, I said, cautiously approaching the kitchen island. I watched as she pulled 2 ceramic mugs from a cabinet. She dropped a tea bag into hers, poured the hot water, and then reached for the sugar. She added 1 spoonful, then another, then a third, then a fourth. I stared at her. My brain, which had just survived a corporate assassination attempt, completely stalled. The ruthless, villainous CEO drinks tea that is 80% sugar. Mina looked up and caught me staring. Her mismatched violet and emerald eyes narrowed. If you tell anyone about the sugar, she said, her voice dropping back to its usual 0 degrees temperature, I will have tea throw you off this balcony. Understood? I said quickly. Your secret is safe with the disposable extra. She let out a soft sound. It wasn't quite a laugh, but it was close. She handed me my mug, black, no sugar, thankfully, and picked up her own, but her hand trembled. It was a tiny tremor, a sudden betrayal of her own exhaustion. The heavy ceramic mug slipped from her fingers. I moved without thinking. I reached across the marble counter and caught the mug before it could shatter, my hand clamping down directly over hers. It wasn't a tactical grab. I wasn't trying to trigger a vision. I was just trying to stop her from dropping boiling water on herself, but skin touched skin. The world died, sound vanished. The quiet luxury of the penthouse dissolved, replaced by the freezing, humming environment of a massive server farm. Aisles of towering black mainframes stretched out in front of me, blinking with hundreds of blue LED lights. It was the Yumi server network, the same arrows June had targeted at the gala. With Mina's clarity steadying my echo, the vision was terrifyingly sharp. I saw June standing in the server aisle dressed in black. He wasn't smiling his gentle heroic smile. He looked ruthless. Beside him stood a nervous technician wearing a Yumi network badge. The maintenance window opens at 2 a.m. tomorrow, the technician whispered, handing June a heavy silver bypass drive. The security protocols will be blind for exactly 6 minutes. Once you plug this into the core architecture, you'll have backdoor access to all of Kong Murray's rooted data. June took the drive. And Mina Kong won't even know I have the keys to her kingdom until she's already locked out. The vision shattered. The hum of the servers vanished,
replaced by the quiet ticking of the kitchen clock.
I was still standing in the penthouse. My hand was still tightly wrapped over Mina's. My pulse was hammering in my throat.
Slowly, I realized we were just standing there holding hands over a mug of overly sweet tea. I pulled my hand back awkwardly, clearing my throat.
Mina didn't look flustered. She didn't blush.
She just looked at her hand, then looked up at me, the exhaustion completely gone from her eyes.
The Ice Queen was back.
He isn't just trying to win socially anymore, I said, my voice slightly hoarse.
If he gets that bypass drive into the core architecture during tomorrow's maintenance window, he won't just control Yumi.
He'll have full access to your entire RD archive.
The frame job today was just a distraction to keep you busy.
Mina picked up her tea, her hand perfectly steady this time.
She took a sip. A maintenance window at 2:00 a.m., she murmured.
Yes, I said,
the panic creeping back into my chest.
He is going to physically break into the most secure server farm in the country. And because the script protects him, the guards will probably be looking the wrong way, the cameras will glitch, and he will walk right out. I started pacing the kitchen.
We have to warn Yumi or call the police, or I stopped looking at Mina. She was smiling.
It was the same beautiful, cruel smirk she had worn in the boardroom.
We are not calling the police, Jean, she said softly. I stopped pacing. Why not?
Because, Mina said, setting her mug down, if June wants to steal a server network, I am not going to let him do it alone.
I stared at her. Please tell me she doesn't mean what I think she means.
Director Kong, I said slowly, are you suggesting we break into a highly classified data center to stop the hero from breaking into a highly classified data center? No, Mina corrected, walking past me toward a sleek digital interface hidden behind a painting on the wall. I am suggesting we break in first, steal the core data ourselves, and leave him standing in an empty room with a useless drive. She pressed her thumb to the interface. A hidden panel slid open, revealing an array of encrypted laptops and server tools. Get some sleep, Jean, the villainess said, her mismatched eyes glowing with pure tactical malice.
Tomorrow night, we are committing corporate treason.
Committing corporate treason is shockingly boring for the first 10 minutes when your accomplice is the most powerful woman in the city. I had spent the car ride mentally preparing for something out of an action movie. I expected laser grids, dodging security patrols, and maybe dropping from an air duct. Instead, Mina's assistant, T, simply walked into the front office of the Yumi server network facility at 1:15 a.m., handed the night manager a thick unmarked envelope, and disabled the security cameras. The door is open, T's voice crackled dryly through the small earpiece Mina had given me.
Mina pushed open the heavy reinforced steel doors, and we stepped into the server farm. I shivered immediately.
The room was massive, a freezing humming cathedral of black computer towers and endless rows of blinking lights.
My navy blazer was completely useless against the industrial air conditioning.
June's maintenance window opens at 2 a.m., Mina said, checking her watch.
She didn't seem to feel the cold at all. We have exactly 45 minutes. We need to figure out which specific server he plans to plug into, copy the files he wants to steal, and leave a trap behind. I looked down the seemingly infinite aisles of identical black towers. There had to be thousands of them.
Director Kong, they all look exactly the same.
How are we supposed to know where he's going to strike? Mina stopped walking and turned to me. I don't, you do.
I stared at her.
My visions don't work like a search engine. I can't just type a question into my brain and hit enter.
They do when you touch me, she said. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a tactical instruction.
I hesitated.
In the boardroom, our touch had been a complete accident. In her penthouse kitchen, catching her hand had been a pure reflex to stop a falling mug.
This was deliberate. You want me to hold your hand? I said.
I want you to initiate a connection so your echo and my clarity can find our target, she corrected, her face perfectly composed.
Right, obviously a tactical connection.
I took a breath, stepped closer, and held out my hand.
Mina didn't hesitate.
She reached out and her cold, slender fingers slipped seamlessly into mine.
Skin touched skin. The heavy mechanical humming of the server farm instantly vanished.
The familiar headache spiked as the script's echo roared to life. A rush of chaotic noise and blinding flashes.
But the moment Mina's presence intertwined with mine, the static was filtered away.
The storm of images snapped into a perfect high-definition overlay of the future.
Through the vision, I saw June.
He was walking down the third aisle, his face pale in the harsh blue light.
He stopped at a specific tower halfway down the row.
I watched him pull a silver flash drive from his pocket and slot it into the machine. A victorious, arrogant smile spread across his face as the screen turned green. The vision shattered. Sound rushed back into my ears with the force of a physical blow. The sudden, violent shift back to reality was incredibly jarring. Mina, who is usually the picture of perfect, untouchable balance, gasped softly as the world snapped back. Her heel caught on the edge of a raised metal floor panel and she stumbled forward. She wasn't being tactical. She was just human, caught entirely off guard by the sensory overload of the vision. I caught her. My arm wrapped securely around her waist, pulling her flush against my chest to keep her from hitting the freezing floor. The momentum forced me to take a step back to brace us both, holding her tight. Suddenly, the vast, empty server farm felt incredibly small. We were standing inches apart. I could see the faint mist of her breath mingling with mine in the freezing air. She blinked, her free hand resting flat against my chest for support, looking up at me with a rare, completely unguarded moment of shock. The terrifying Ice Queen of Murray Group wasn't glaring, and she wasn't calculating her next corporate move. She was just looking at me. My heart was hammering against my ribs, and I knew for a fact it had absolutely nothing to do with corporate espionage or the fear of getting caught. I realized I was still holding her hand. I also realized I didn't want to let it go. I leaned in just a fraction of an inch. Mina didn't pull away. Her breath hitched slightly, her gaze dropping briefly to my lips before rising back to my eyes. The tension between us was suddenly thicker than the freezing air. "Director, the night manager is getting nervous. You have 20 minutes. T's flat, robotic voice crackled through our earpieces, shattering the quiet intimacy of the moment like a brick through a window. Mina blinked, her composure rushing back in an instant. She stepped back smoothly, smoothing the front of her skirt, though I noticed her fingers lingered against my chest for a second longer than strictly necessary. "Third aisle, halfway down," I said, my voice sounding a little too rough in the quiet room. "Good work, Mina," she murmured, her tone carefully neutral again, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. We moved swiftly down the rows until we found the exact server tower from the vision. Mina pulled a sleek black drive from her pocket and plugged it into the same port I had seen June use. She tapped a few commands into her tablet with terrifying speed. "What exactly are you doing?" I asked, watching the progress bar on her screen race forward. "I am downloading the proprietary data he came here to steal," she explained, her eyes fixed on the screen. "When we are done, there will be nothing left for him to take." For a few seconds, everything worked. Then the progress bar froze at 62%. A red warning flashed across Mina's tablet. "Secondary authentication required." The server room lights flickered once. Far down the aisle, a magnetic lock clicked open. T's voice cut through the earpiece, flatter than ever, but noticeably faster. "Director, a supervisor just returned early. The night manager claims he forgot his medication. He is heading toward row C." My stomach dropped. "That sounds like a coincidence." "That is not a coincidence," Mina said, her calm voice sharpened. "That is the script trying to put a witness exactly where June needs one." Another warning appeared. "Forensic mirror initiated." Mina's fingers moved faster over the tablet, but for the first time, I saw tension in her jaw. "He planned for interference. If I force the download, the system will create a mirror log showing that I accessed the archive first. So, he still frames you." "Yes." The footsteps grew closer. I grabbed Mina's hand before I could talk myself out of it. Skin touched skin. Pain stabbed behind my eyes sharper than before, like the script was furious we had asked to see the answer. The vision came in jagged pieces. The supervisor turning the corner. Mina's tablet locked. June arriving early. The forged mirror logs spreading through the network like poison. Then one image snapped clear, a small maintenance switch beneath the server rack hidden behind a loose metal panel. I dropped to one knee, ripped the panel open, and found the switch exactly where the vision had shown it. "Left one," Mina said, seeing it with me. I flipped it. The server gave a low mechanical hum. The red warning vanished. The progress bar jumped from 62% to 89%. Around the corner, T appeared with the returning supervisor beside him, speaking in his usual dead voice about fire safety inspection forms. The supervisor looked trapped in bureaucratic hell. I almost laughed from sheer panic. "So when June plugs his drive in, he just gets an empty folder," I whispered. Mina's lips curved into that beautiful, highly dangerous smirk, but it was thinner than usual. This one had cost her something. "No, I am leaving a little surprise behind." The moment he connects to this port, a program will trigger that permanently erases his flash drive and locks him out of the entire network. He won't just fail to steal the data, he will destroy his own equipment trying. I stared at her.
You are planting a digital landmine for the hero.
I am protecting what is mine, she corrected, pulling her drive free as the screen flashed green to signal it was done. And making sure he understands that this game has changed. Time's up, T warned in my ear.
A vehicle matching June's is approaching the security gate. Let's go, Mina said. We slipped out the side exit just as the clock hit 1:55 a.m., vanishing into the cold night before the fake hero even swiped his badge at the front desk. We had stolen the data, rigged the trap, and for the first time in my life, we were moving faster than the script ever intended. If you want to convince a billionaire tech heiress that our heroic savior is actually a corporate parasite, you don't use emotions. You use access logs. At 7 a.m., exactly 5 hours after we had broken into the Yumi server network, the heiress herself was sitting on the velvet sofa in Mina's heavily armored penthouse. Yumi looked exhausted.
She was still wearing the same expensive dress from the gala, though it was now permanently ruined by red wine. Across the low-glass coffee table, Mina sat with perfect posture, sipping her violently oversweetened tea as if it were a casual Sunday morning.
I stood by the window watching the script fight a losing battle.
This is absurd, Yumi said, crossing her arms defensively. The invisible gravity of the story was still trying to protect June's image in her mind.
June spilled that wine by accident. He gave me his jacket. He was perfectly polite. Why would he stage an accident just to ask about my network security? Mina didn't argue.
She just placed her tablet on the glass table and slid it across to Yumi.
At 2:04 a.m.
Last night, Mina said, her voice smooth and chillingly calm, an unauthorized user bypassed your south security gate, walked to row C, node 44 of your primary server farm, and inserted a physical bypass drive. We know this because my assistant T disabled your cameras at 1:15 a.m., and I planted landmine on that exact port 20 minutes before he arrived.
Yumi stared at the tablet.
On the screen was a diagnostic report from her own company. My security team, Yumi's voice faltered, my lead engineer called me an hour ago. He said someone plugged a rogue drive into the core architecture, but a localized virus completely fried the intruder's hardware and locked the port. You're welcome, Mina replied, taking a delicate sip of her tea. Yumi looked up, her pink hair falling over her shoulders. The realization was hitting her, breaking through the emotional fog the script usually relied on.
He wasn't trying to help me at the gala. He was profiling me. He used my own embarrassment as a networking opportunity.
June does not have accidents, I said, stepping away from the window.
He creates vulnerabilities and then he sells you the cure. Yumi looked at me, then back at Mina.
Her defensive posture melted away, replaced by the cold, calculating fury of a woman who had just realized she was being used as a stepping stone.
What do you want, Director Khan?
Yumi asked, her tone shifting from a defensive socialite to a ruthless tech executive. I want the footage of him entering your facility, Mina said.
Even with the cameras disabled, your physical badge scanners record weight and heartbeat biometrics. I want the biometric log that proves June was standing in front of that server at 2:04 a.m. Yumi's fingers tightened around the tablet. For 1 second, the fog tried to return.
I saw it in her eyes, the memory of June's gentle smile. The jacket he had offered, the easy warmth that made suspicion feel rude.
Then she looked at the biometric report again.
This is my network, Yumi said quietly.
No one uses it as a ladder.
She lifted her eyes, and the softness was gone.
Done.
Just as she said the word, my phone buzzed, and Mina's phone and Yumi's. It was a synchronized corporate news alert. I looked down at the glowing screen, my stomach dropping into my shoes.
Breaking.
Kong Murray executive June announces emergency press conference at noon, promises shocking whistleblower evidence regarding director Mina Kong.
I looked up. He's pivoting.
He lost the server data, Mina said, her eyes darkening as she read the headline.
He failed to steal my RD archive and his bypass drive was destroyed.
He has no physical leverage left, so he's going for public opinion. I finished the thought, the panic starting to hum behind my ears.
He's going to use the forged offshore ledger from the boardroom.
Since Chairman Kong didn't fire you, June is going to bypass the board entirely and project the fake evidence to the national media.
He's going to claim you destroyed the RD data to cover your tracks.
If he does that on live television, Yumi whispered, Kong Murray Group stock will crash before the broadcast even ends.
The board will be forced to remove you just to appease the shareholders. The penthouse fell completely silent. The script was cornering us. June was pushing the plot toward its climax using the sheer weight of public opinion to crush the villainess. Mina stood up. She walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window looking out over the city. She didn't look angry. She looked tired. For a brief second, the terrifying Ice Queen seemed entirely alone against the weight of a world designed to ruin her. I didn't think about it. I just walked over and stood beside her. I didn't say anything comforting. I just held out my hand. Mina looked at my hand, then up at my face. The memory of the freezing server room, the moment I had caught her, the breathless tension between us flashed in her mismatched eyes. The corners of her lips softened into something that was almost barely a genuine smile. She placed her hand in mine. Skin touched skin, the penthouse vanished. The script's echo didn't scream this time because Mina's clarity steadied it. It sang. The vision unfolded around us like a crystal-clear stage play. We were standing in the grand press hall of Kong Murray Group. Hundreds of reporters were flashing cameras. June stood at the podium looking perfectly devastated. "It brings me no joy to do this," the visionary June said to the cameras, his voice thick with fake grief. "But director Mina Kong has betrayed this company. Behind me is the offshore ledger proving her guilt." In the vision, June pressed a button on his remote. The massive digital screen behind him lit up displaying the forged document with T's stolen signature. The reporters gasped. The cameras flashed faster. June lowered his head, hiding his triumphant smile. The vision shattered. We were back in the penthouse. My chest was heaving. I didn't let go of Mina's hand. "Did you see it?" I asked, my voice low. "I saw the remote," Mina said, her thumb tracing a slow, absent-minded circle against the back of my hand. "I saw the exact network path his presentation is routed through." She finally turned away from the window and looked at Yumi. The exhaustion was gone. The apex predator was back. "Yumi," Mina said, her voice ringing with absolute authority. "How quickly can your network engineers hijack a live broadcast feed inside Kong Mayor headquarters?" Yumi's eyes lit up with malicious delight. "If I have the biometric proof of his break-in and you give me the network path, give me 2 hours. I can have whatever you want playing on that screen." Mina finally let go of my hand, though I immediately missed the warmth of it. She walked over to the marble counter and picked up her tablet. "June wants to project a story to the world," Mina said, looking between Yumi and me. "So, we are going to let him step up to the podium. We are going to let him call the media. We are going to let him press the button." I couldn't help the smile that spread across my face. "But, he isn't going to be the one controlling the screen." "No," Mina said, her mismatched eyes shining with the promise of absolute destruction. "We are going to let the hero dig his own grave on national television. And then, Jean, we are going to bury him in it." The grand press hall of Kong Mayor Group was packed so tightly that the air felt thin. Every major news network, financial blog, and independent journalist in the city had crammed into the room. Their camera lenses aimed like sniper rifles at the main stage. I stood in the shadows of the VIP viewing wing looking down at the spectacle. Beside me, Mina watched the crowd with the absolute stillness of a predator waiting for its prey to walk into the kill zone. The invisible gravity of the script was suffocating. I could feel it humming in my jaw, desperately trying to force the universe into its designated shape. This was supposed to be the climax of the hero's journey. This was the scene where the villainess was destroyed forever and the background characters were forgot. At exactly noon, June walked onto the stage. He didn't stride out with arrogance. He walked slowly, his shoulders slightly slumped, wearing a simple dark suit. He looked perfectly exhausted, like a man carrying a terrible burden for the greater good. The camera flashes erupted into a blinding strobe light, but he just offered a sad, gentle smile. "He is good," I thought, pushing my glasses up my nose. "I'll give him that. If I didn't know he was a sociopath, I'd want to hug him." June stepped up to the podium and adjusted the microphone. The room fell dead silent. "Thank you all for coming," June said, his voice thick with rehearsed grief. "It brings me no joy to stand before you today. I love this company. I have dedicated my life to the Kong Murray Group, but there is a rot at the very top of our leadership, and for the sake of our employees and shareholders, I can no longer stay silent." He lowered his eyes, letting the cameras capture the pain he wanted them to see. People need leadership they can trust. They need someone who protects them from fear, secrecy, and cold ambition. He paused, letting the dramatic weight of his words settle over the reporters.
Last night, an investigation uncovered that director Mina Kong deliberately sabotaged her own RD archive, transferring highly classified proprietary data to an offshore server before attempting to wipe the traces. The press hall exploded into shouts and rapid-fire questions.
June held up a hand, playing the reluctant martyr flawlessly.
I know this is difficult to believe, June continued, raising a small black remote, which is why I am not asking you to take my word for it. Behind me is the offshore ledger proving her guilt, bearing the digital signature of her own office. June pointed the remote at the massive digital screen behind the podium.
He pressed the button. I held my breath.
The massive screen blinked black for a fraction of a second. For one horrible instant, the forged ledger appeared.
My skull split with static.
The script surged through the hall like a storm, dragging every camera, every microphone, every reporter's attention toward the ending it wanted. The letters on the screen crawled into place.
Offshore account T signature, Mina's guilt.
Mina's hand found mine in the shadows.
Skin touched skin.
The static sharpened. Her clarity cut through the pressure.
And somewhere inside the building, Yumi's hijacked feed forced itself back onto the screen.
The ledger broke apart into pixels, then the screen lit up properly. It was a crisp, high-definition security overlay bearing the glowing pink logo of the Yumi server network. The reporters froze.
On the massive screen, a timestamp appeared in bold white text. 2:04 a.m.
Then, the biometric security logs flashed across the screen.
Unauthorized access detected. Weight profile match. Heartbeat biometric match. Intruder identified. JOON.
Beneath the text, crystal clear infrared footage played of June standing in the freezing server farm plugging a silver bypass drive into row C node 44.
June finally noticed the shifting expressions in the crowd. He turned around. The gentle heroic mask didn't slip. Instead, June simply lowered his head, letting out a heavy disappointed sigh into the microphone.
I didn't want to show this part, June said, his voice echoing with sorrow over the silent hall. When I discovered Director Kong was destroying the RD archive, I went to the Yumi server network personally.
I tried to manually override the deletion.
I tried to save the company's data, but I was too late. She planted had already locked the port.
The press hall murmured, the invisible script desperately pushing the room back into his favor. Yumi looked briefly uncertain, her checkmate suddenly spun into evidence of his heroism.
June looked directly at me and Mina in the VIP wing.
A microscopic arrogant smirk touched his lips. He thought he had one. Is that your defense, June?
The voice cut through the chaos like a blade of ice.
Mina stepped out from the shadows of the VIP wing and walked into the stage lights. I followed a half step behind her, no longer trying to blend into the background.
Director Kong, June said, projecting his noble persona, you don't need to do this. The footage proves I tried to stop you. If you want to play the hero who tried to save the data, Mina said smoothly.
Stopping a few feet away from him, you should make sure you didn't leave a confession behind. Mina raised a sleek silver remote and pressed the button. The Yumi server footage shrank, replaced by a massive digital audio waveform.
A heavy bass drop echoed through the hall as the crystal-clear recording of June's real voice played over the speakers. Once you plug this into the core architecture, you'll have backdoor access to all of Kong Murray's rooted data. And Mina Kong won't even know I have the keys to her kingdom until she's already locked out.
Audio of a villain explaining his plot was impossible to spin.
This time the gentle heroic mask didn't just slip, it shattered. The color completely drained from his face, leaving him looking like a ghost in a dark suit.
Yumi walked out from the opposite side of the stage. The audio and footage are verified by my internal security grid, Yumi declared. Yumi Networks is filing immediate federal charges for corporate espionage. June stumbled back, hitting the edge of the digital screen.
He looked around the room, desperately searching for a friendly face, a sympathetic eye, an accident, a coincidence, anything. He was waiting for the script to save him. I felt the air in the room shift, a strange, heavy sensation like a taut string snapping. The invisible gravity that had protected him his entire life simply dissolved. He was no longer the hero. He was just a cornered, arrogant man who had finally run out of lies.
Chairman Kong stood up from the front row. For a moment, I thought he might actually try to defend his golden boy.
Instead, the chairman struck his mahogany cane against the floor, shot June a look of absolute disgust, and walked out of the hall, abandoning him to the wolves.
The police officers waiting by the side doors,
the same ones who had been brought in to arrest me the day before, stepped onto the stage.
June, you are under arrest, the lead officer said, grabbing his arm.
As they pulled him past us, June looked up. His green eyes were bloodshot, fixated on Mina. "You," he hissed, his voice trembling with venom. "You were supposed to fall.
This wasn't how it was supposed to happen." Mina looked down at him.
There was no anger in her face, only absolute, terrifying indifference. "I write my own schedules," she whispered.
They dragged him away. The cameras kept flashing, capturing the exact moment the fake hero's destiny collapsed. Mina turned to me amidst the chaos, the deafening noise of the reporters fading into the background.
She didn't smile, but her emerald and violet eyes were shining with a profound, quiet victory.
3 nights later, after the headlines had turned June from beloved hero into national disgrace, I found Mina alone on the balcony of the hidden penthouse.
The city below looked peaceful, which felt almost insulting after everything it had tried to do to us.
"You don't need me anymore," I said. Mina did not turn around. "That is a foolish thing to say. I mean, the war is over. June is gone. The board can't touch you. Yumi is on your side. T can probably defeat half the legal department with one spreadsheet." All true. So, technically, the disposable extra has completed his usefulness. That made her turn. For a moment, the terrifying Ice Queen looked genuinely offended, not angry, hurt.
"Jean," she said quietly, "I did not keep you close because you were useful."
My throat tightened.
She stepped toward me, the wind lifting a few strands of dark purple hair from her face. "You were the first person who saw the world trying to destroy me and did not look away." I had no joke prepared for that.
Mina held out her hand, not as a command this time, as a choice. I took it.
No vision came, no warning, no script, just warmth. The blinding flashes of the cameras hit us one last time.
The invisible gravity that had controlled our lives was finally gone.
A year later, the snow falling over the city was white enough to hide the past entirely. I stood at the end of a grand aisle in a private glass-domed cathedral overlooking the Han River. I was wearing a black tuxedo that cost more than my previous apartment, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I actually belonged in it. The music swelled and the heavy oak doors opened.
The entire cathedral went silent. Mina walked down the aisle.
She wore a breathtaking white gown that traded her usual sharp corporate armor for a flowing, elegant grace. Her dark purple bob was pinned with diamonds, but it was her eyes, one violet, one emerald, that completely anchored me to the floor.
When she reached the altar, she didn't look at the priest. She didn't look at the wealthy guests. She looked only at me.
"You are staring, Jean," she murmured softly as she stepped up beside me.
"I'm currently exercising maximum restraint not to pass out from how beautiful you look," I whispered back. "Let me stare."
The faintest blush touched the tips of her ears. The terrifying Ice Queen of Murray Group, the woman who had single-handedly dismantled a corporate conspiracy and fired half her board of directors, was blushing. The priest began to speak, but the words blurred into the background.
When the time came, I reached out.
Mina lifted her hand, and her slender fingers slid perfectly into mine.
Skin touched skin. I braced myself for the headache.
I waited for the script's echo to scream, for the world to freeze, for the chaotic flashes of danger and corporate warfare to assault my mind, but there was no static. There was no freezing cold. The vision opened, but it wasn't a warning.
It opened like sunlight. I saw a sprawling sunlit corner office.
I saw Mina and me standing by a drafting table, not as pawn and villainess, but as equal partners building an empire. I saw Yumi laughing across a conference room while T silently corrected everyone's paperwork. The vision shifted, warmer this time. I saw a small child with deep blue eyes and dark purple hair running down a hallway holding a toy while Mina tried and failed to hide a massive genuine smile. The vision shifted one last time. I saw our hands wrinkled with age still joined together, still warm, still free.
The vision ended.
I blinked, the cathedral coming back into focus.
I looked at Mina.
Her breath had caught in her throat. She had seen it, too, not the future the universe demanded, the future we had chosen. For the first time in my life I felt no pressure pushing me into a role, no invisible hand guiding the scene, no story waiting to punish me for stepping out of place.
"Did you see it?" I whispered.
Mina smiled, not her cruel smirk, not her tactical, dangerous curve of the lips. It was a radiant, breathless, completely human smile. "Yes," she said, the script was silent.
We were the authors now.